Good evening. Come to order and welcome to the July 12th, 2017 meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. Before we get started, I would like to ask everyone to please silence whatever devices you have with you. And for anyone who is here to speak on any of our hearings, we're happy to have the public input. Please come to the podium, however, because we need to, for the sake of the recording secretary and also the fact that we're being broadcast on FCTV. So we need your name and we need you to use the microphone. Okay, thank you. First order of business, the minutes of June 28th. Betsy.
Read them, and I think they're fine. I wasn't here for the last part, but Jamie said that he looked over that, so I move that we accept.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry. Okay, we have a motion and a second. I had two items that I had issue with, a conversation of that unusual bank that Leslie Fields testified about. There's a statement in here that says the bank isn't functioning, and that I don't believe is...
No, what I said was, this does not prevent it from still functioning.
Right, so...
I know, it does not function up at the 28-foot level to block floodwaters because there's a big gap.
Mm-hmm.
So it's functioning to block floodwaters, but not where that little jog would be.
Right, this is where Leslie
So it
Fields is
overcomes
talking.
the presumption of...
Right.
Which is really how Leslie should have presented it. It overcomes the presumption.
Right. I just think that we need to modify that sentence because it's a little misleading. It says the bank isn't functioning.
Clarify for the record.
Or do you disagree? If you disagree, just...
The bank does function
Yes.
to control floodwaters up till
Right.
12 feet or whatever that is.
Okay. So,
Just give it to us, Marilyn.
Jen can express it.
We'll correct the record for it.
all right.
Peter, can you pass that over to me?
Now it's hot again.
Yeah. It's a lot of that in here. All right.
Is
Do we
this
have a
a-
second? I'm sorry. I didn't-
Yeah, Jamie.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Jamie seconded.
So, as discussed, vote to accept the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, so moved. All right, other business. Barnstable County entomologist Larry Dapsis will be presenting on tick habitats behavior, the illnesses they carry, and effective control measures.
Okay.
Good evening, thank you for coming.
Yeah, my pleasure to talk about a subject that's near and dear to my heart and has been for the last 6 years. All right, what we're going to do tonight is kind of an abbreviated version of...
Good. That's good.
A few more. Oh,
That's
Yep,
good.
All right.
It's better.
So what we're going to do tonight is an abbreviated version of what normally I spend about better part of an hour covering with the general public. But what I'm going to do tonight is just give you a sense of the general landscape of tick-borne diseases and some of the things that we've been doing to address this both at a county level and what we've been doing to kind of help you address this at a local level as well, and some of the things that we're considering going forward to even improve our situation even more. If you have any questions, feel free to jump right in. All right, so let's just look at a quick picture of the different types of ticks that you and your people who live here in Falmouth are dealing with. This is the American dog tick, and for a number of us, this is the tick we really remember growing up with. When I was a kid, up in Worcester, we didn't have deer ticks and Lyme disease. This was the tick of the day. Now, what I consider this to be is more of a nuisance than a public health threat, even though they can vector the pathogens that cause Rocky Mountain spotted fever and tularemia. But those are quite rare in Massachusetts. Although last year, you may remember reading that we had a 10-year-old girl in Brewster who came down with Rocky Mountain, successfully diagnosed, which was good, medevac to Boston and successfully treated. All right, You may have heard about this guy. This is our latest addition to the tick landscape, the Lone Star tick. And we're discovering this is a very, very different tick, and so we're trying to educate the general public as much as we can, just because it's unlike any other tick that people have ever dealt with. We discovered this thing 3 years ago out at Sandy Neck Beach Park, and we were called out there by mosquito control. They were seeing something they hadn't seen before. They knew what deer ticks and dog ticks were, but this didn't fit the description. And Sandy Neck Beach Park is a 6-mile-long peninsula in West Barnstable, and when I was sampling, I found that thing from one end to the other. They own that piece of real estate. We believe it was introduced by migratory birds, and now that I think with some photographic evidence we've acquired since last fall, it's being moved around by creatures on the ground like our friends the coyotes and the wild turkeys. Last fall, we found this thing along the Shining Sea bike path in West Falmouth. I was called by a doctor who had a woman in her office, and they suspected she had a lot of tick bites on her legs, but they couldn't see them. So they asked me to give some advice on how to verify this, because she said I can't use tweezers on the things. So I said, just take a little bit of duct tape, put it over the welts, peel it off, send it to me, and I verified them as Lone Star tick larvae, really, really tiny things. And this woman had 182 of these things attached to her at the time. Yeah, and the reason this is such a different tick, it's an aggressive biter. So unlike other ticks we deal with, like deer ticks, they have excellent vision and they can run with spider-like speed, okay? And like other ticks, the adult females, they lay their, are you itching already?
Me?
Yeah, I can see you kind of doing this. And that's fairly common.
No, I like
in my
spider-like
audiences.
speed too.
Okay, yeah, they are fast. They're like little Ferraris. So the adult females, they lay their eggs in a cluster, which might be 4,000 or 5,000 eggs. And when they hatch out late in the summer, August into September, you wind up with these very high concentrations of these little teeny tiny tick larvae. And when you're going along and bump into one, generally you meet most of the family. So within a few minutes, you can be quickly swarmed and receive hundreds of bites. Fortunately, these little larvae, see, they're only about 0.7 millimeters across. You can hardly see the things, but you can see the welts, and the discomfort can persist for 4 or 5, even 6 weeks, even with treatment. While they don't transmit the pathogen that causes Lyme disease, they do have their own unique diseases associated with it. So ehrlichiosis and tularemia, which can be quite serious, but we have not seen that in any of the ticks yet. But Stari type of rash disease, flu-like symptoms, not too bad, but we have actually found that detected in some of the Lone Star ticks. And I think everybody has heard this news, that the bite of a Lone Star tick can trigger an allergy to red meat consumption. And this allergy can range from hives all the way to anaphylactic shock. And it's interesting, it's not just beef, but it's pork and lamb, and even beef byproducts like beef-derived gelatin. And if you think about processed foods, beef-derived gelatin is used in a lot of different products, including the marshmallows that we feed our children. So this guy is worth watching as it continues to expand. What we're finding is on Cape Cod, this thing is very, very happy, and it's going to be here for the long run.
Excuse me, quick question. How long does it take for a reaction like that to become noticeable?
Minutes.
Minutes, okay.
Minutes.
Are those different bites?
Oh yeah, those are individual ticks. So this is still the front and center player that we're dealing with, the deer tick. The proper name for this is really the black-legged tick, because this thing has been documented to be associated with 125 different vertebrate hosts. So it's not just about deer, it's not just about mice. This is a very complex ecosystem. There's a lot of moving parts. But this nymph stage tick, that is really the key player. That stage is responsible for 85% of all tick-borne diseases, because they're active during the summer months, all right? And they're very, very small. When we talk about this to people, we describe them as being the size of a poppy seed. Well, it's one thing to tell you about a poppy seed, but here's a vial of nymph stage ticks, and I want you to see just how small these things really are. this should scare the daylights out of anybody, all right? Because if you're bitten, you may not detect that bite at all. But this thing shows something else. The risk of getting a tick-borne illness is year-round. So it's a myth that people think it's only during the summer months. Anytime you get temperatures above freezing and a break in snow cover, you're going to have tick activity, because one of the things about ticks is they make antifreeze. So they have been on the planet for 140 million years. They've seen it all, okay? All right, so if we look at a 40,000-foot view, yeah, this shows ranking by state. And I think it's noteworthy that all 6 New England states are in the top 6 positions, the highest incidence rates in the country, led by Maine and Vermont. When this was calculated, we were number 5, but the previous time this 3-year average was done, we were number 3. And if you look at those rates, that's a pretty tight cluster of numbers. It just takes a few cases one way or the other to alter those rankings. If you look at it within the state, this is incidence rate by county. So Nantucket and Dukes County, which is the Vineyard, they have a higher incidence rate than any place else in the visible universe. I mean, it is hot over there. And there's a number of some interesting reasons, both ecologically and behaviorally, what people are doing, or specifically what they're not doing. Now, Barnstable County for many years was number 3. And when these data came out, Plymouth County passed us by a pretty good margin. And this got the attention of people at the Harvard School of Medicine. They were looking at trends in Lyme disease. And what they saw in 9 of the 10 counties, it's doing this in all those counties except for Barnstable County. We're flat as a tabletop. It's not going down, but it's not going up. We're holding our own. And they started asking some questions and probing around. And what they discovered is that Barnstable County is the only county in the state that has a very, very aggressive education program. And so it seems that that is taking traction. So one of the doctors, David Scale, he's also a freelance writer, and he's now writing a series for NPR Boston, and his first piece is going to be out this Friday. So he's basically writing a series of articles about what we're doing here on the Cape to help ourselves, because the message is clear that CDC or some other tall organization's not going to be walking through that door with a solution for everybody. So we kind of got to help ourselves, and to a certain extent we are. And this looks at it at town level across here. So Truro, Wellfleet, Brewster, and Orleans, if you look at those incidence rates and change the scale a little bit, those 4 towns look like the incidence rates we see on Nantucket and the Vineyard. So it's very, very severe out there. Falmouth, you're somewhere in the middle, but those are not trivial numbers, because one of the things I want to point out here is that this is rate per 10,000 people. So according to this, at face value, in Falmouth, you would have had about 35 cases a year, and that's just a ridiculous number. Nobody agrees with it, the medical community. So you can basically take those numbers and probably multiply them by 10 to get a more realistic number of what's going on here. So, and if you compare Falmouth to towns in another part of the Commonwealth, yeah, it's not a low-level problem here. It's pretty severe here, okay? It's just a reporting issue. I thought what I'd do for context is provide a little bit of information on the cost of what this is for our county and our community. Group of students at Union College, they put together a study and they determined what the average cost was for treating a single Lyme patient, and they came up with, whoop, we had a problem.
I don't know, just hit restart.
Restart it?
No, I wouldn't restart it, I'd
No.
close
Why don't you
it.
just close the...
Close it up
Yeah.
the top.
All right. Whoop, did it blow up?
Is it on the
Alright.
Yeah, we have to go to his we have to go to his file.
Go
Really?
to reset. It's on, yeah, it's on the...
Anytime else with that. I'm not the best computer.
We'll have them transfer it to the laptop, to the desktop. To the desktop. Put the file on the desktop.
Yep.
Oh, the desktop.
Yeah.
Presentations. 2017.
Well, slide it over to the,
Yep, I got it.
In Falmouth, July 12th.
I move this. Yeah, there we go.
You are an IT person, we didn't even know it. I think I just put it on
slideshow.
slideshow. No, the screen.
Two more.
One more, right there. All right.
Should I start over? Fast forward, fast. All right, so his first article will be out on Friday. So, yeah, it's not trivial here. And if you look at the cost, a single case is about $8,500 to treat, all right? So if you roll that cost through the county, the number of cases that are actually on the books, it says $2.3 million a year, but if you use this correction factor of tenfold, this is a $23 million problem in the county for residents. If you look at Falmouth, yeah, it's somewhere, it's probably more on the order of $2.5 million in terms of cost to treat patients just within your town. So there's a huge stake here, and that doesn't even account for lost work time or lost school time or things like that. So if you look at the roll-up of other diseases that we're tracking, so we have babesiosis, anaplasmosis. A few years ago, it was brought to our attention, we have relapsing fever here. And recently, I think a lot of people, we got a lot of news coverage on this Powassan virus. So in the last 3 years, there have been 14 cases. And this is pretty important when you do come down sick, because it'll land you in the hospital with symptoms, clinical presentations, typically encephalitis or meningitis, swelling of the brain and the spinal tissues. And on average, it's fatal in about 10% of the cases, okay? And of these 3 fatalities, 2 of those were on Cape Cod this year, one in Falmouth and one in Sandwich. All right, one of the programs that we've had sponsored by Cape Cod Healthcare is tick testing program, subsidized tick testing. So in each of the last 2 years, we were able to drop the standard cost of testing from $50 to $15 until the money ran out. This year, we ran out of our grant monies about 3 weeks ago, so we're back up to the $50 charge, but it's still good data, you get good value for it. And we think part of the reason we burned the money so fast is we had a very good marketing campaign, send a tick to college, basically. And so Gabby Sikorsky from Mosquito Control and I, we were walking billboards for this program. We advertised it everywhere we went. And the response from people has been very, very positive. The medical community is now embracing this as a diagnostic tool to help them. Because what we're finding is that a number of these ticks are co-infected with 2, 3, even all 4 pathogens. And so this helps the doctors take a lot of the guesswork about when they have patients in their office that, okay, these are the things I should be looking at and evaluating in an individual patient. All right, and when we rolled up what we saw so far this year is, yeah, for Lyme disease, these are ranges that encompass all the towns, so these are the endpoints. So 21 to 41% for these emerging diseases like babesia and anaplasma, yeah, 3 upwards of 17%. The higher numbers seem to be more associated with the outer Cape and the lower numbers, the upper Cape. Same with relapsing fever. The good news is of the 150-plus dog ticks that were tested, we didn't find a single detect for Rocky Mountain spotted fever. So it might be out there, but it's at an extremely low level. And when we took a stab at Powassan, out of the 533 ticks that were tested, we have 4 positives for Powassan, 2 out in Eastham and 2 in Wellfleet. So it tells us that there is an exposure risk for Cape residents, and we have found this virus from Falmouth all the way out to Truro, okay? So it is everywhere along the Cape. So there is some exposure risk, but we feel like the exposure risk is fairly low, but people should be aware. All right, and we have some very interesting things that we see in these tick testing data, and this is a unique one to Falmouth. This shows, these flags show individual tick tests from residents. So what we do is we track it by street address. So these are where the people were living that picked up their ticks. And what's interesting to us is that if you look at the ones that are flagged in red, those are ticks that tested positive for Babesia that causes babesiosis. And every single one of them was west of Route 28. And we were wondering, what's so different ecologically about this real estate versus the rest of the town? So we haven't pursued this, but it's an interesting trend. So another value to the database that we're generating. All right, we do a lot of outreach. I do it in a couple different ways. I'll go to events and I'll have a table display and hand out literature and just have one-on-one discussions with people. And I do an awful lot of classroom style workshops. And so I've got a number of different venues I hit. So I'll do like the libraries, the community centers, our AmeriCorps interns, camp counselors like Camp Burgess and Hayward up in Sandwich, the garden clubs, Ticks and Gardening go hand in hand, and Conservation Land Trust. And when I roll up just this year, what I've committed to do and what I'm going to do, we're everywhere. I will take this show anywhere, anytime, and I feel it's the best way to educate people. And we get a lot of media coverage, including Mindy Todd from her show down at NPR Woods Hole, The Point. She's a very good in-studio host. So we're getting a lot of messaging out there constantly, which is good. So one of the things we hammer about, the most effective tool in the box that we know of is treating clothing with permethrin. And this is for treating fabric, and it'll keep its activity through 6 washings. So we tell people treat their pants, their socks, treating footwear. We find that's mission critical because those nymph stage ticks that we just passed around the room, those are down in the leaf litter. The first place they attach to are your shoes. And what I found in my research on this product, it doesn't just repel ticks. I found with 60 seconds of contact time, those ticks will be dead on average in about 9 minutes. So it's a real attitude adjuster. I recommend that people wearing it year round, and I wear it myself year round. All right. So one of the things that we talked about to maybe extend this permethrin program is potentially having a program here where we would, as a town, maybe county, and maybe product donation, is we could construct a program for people where they could come to a location with pants and footwear, and we would treat them basically for free. It would be an opportunity to talk to them about the product attributes, where they can then buy the product, going forward on their own. And it would be another opportunity for FaceTime where we could give them, printed extension literature. So it's another way to kind of expand influencing people's behaviors. The other thing we wanted to chat about, and we've had some conversation about, is your public access lands. Can we make them safer for people? Because you have a lot of lands in this particular town, and you have a lot of people that take advantage of them because they're beautiful areas. So one of the things we did through a grant from Cape Cod Healthcare several years ago, we came up with this trail sign. So something that's, it doesn't, try and scare the daylights out of you, but it just basically, it heads up that, you enter this area, you're in a little bit different zone, there's some amount of risk, there's some prevention tips on what to do, and we produced 1,000 of these and distributed a lot of them through the state parks, Sandy Neck, and we provided a number of them to your town conservation offices. So we do have some more in inventory that we're willing to donate, and if so, if we run out, we're willing to talk about how to get some more printed up. But it's a way to just kind of keep the awareness level up with people that are out trying to enjoy themselves. The thing that we tell people that they should be mindful of is where are the ticks, okay? And we try and buff myths wherever we can. So I tell people that just because you got a tick on your head, it doesn't mean it jumped out of a tree on you, okay? Deer ticks are blind, they're incapable of jumping, but where they are, they're in this leaf litter area, or these adult stage ticks might be on vegetation about a foot or two off the ground. That's where you're going to encounter the ticks. So to that end, we want to consider areas of better management, and I want to show you a couple ways that's being approached. Whoop, we lost a couple slides. We lost our before and after slides. I'm disappointed in this. What our AmeriCorps interns have done is that on some of these trails, they've been widening them. In some cases, the trails are about 18 inches wide, and it would be difficult to not get encountered with a tick. And what, with very hard work and a lot of sweat, they've expanded these things. We recommended that they widen all the trails to at least 4 feet wide, just give a considerably larger buffer zone. The other thing we wanted to consider is possibly, as we recommend with residential yards, treating the perimeters of some of these select trails. So we're thinking about running this as a research project next year, that if you brought in a commercial applicator and treated the edges of some of these trails with permethrin, for example, in the spring and during the summer, would you get a material reduction in tick populations and further decrease your exposure risk? So it's something we just started chatting about, and there's a lot of logistics to consider, but it's an idea we wanted to kind of put on the table. This is kind of what we're thinking. And so with that, we'll be happy to entertain any questions you might have. Yes, sir.
Do you have something that you recommend for use at my house, in my backyard?
If you were going to do it yourself, we can have the lights up too.
Okay.
For do-it-yourselfer, I recommend to people you can go to a garden center like Mahoney's, and you can get yourself a hose end sprayer. And Bonite has a line of products, and one of them is called EIGHT, E-I-G-H-T, and that's permethrin. So you just hook it up to your garden hose. It'll dilute to the exact right concentration, and it's just point and distribute it through the leaf litter under the bushes and on vegetation. And the attribute of permethrin that we like is that anytime it touches organic matter like leaf litter or soil particles, it's immobilized. It's not going to leach into the water table, and it's not going to wash off site. You can also there's a number of commercial applicators that do this for a living. So Bartlett.
Many of them have been to my door.
Well, there are ones that are trying to sell an all natural solution. And the problem with those products is there's no data to support they work at all.
I don't know what they were selling. I wasn't listening.
You got to ask questions.
Never made it
If
past
you're
the front door,
interested,
huh?
if you're interested.
I believe on the websites, they do have.
I use 8.
Just natural stuff together. I make my own homemade bonbons. I know there are products you can put together. Use around the property.
There's no data. There's no data. It's all
Oh, you're
anecdotal.
probably right, but it's not.
And because it's important that you have to look at this as a situation that is hand-to-hand combat. You don't want to lose a single fight
This
against
is the
one of
fourth
these
tick
little
I've pulled off since 8%
Mhm.
on the property. You can barely see it, it's all,
The nymph.
yeah.
Mhm.
And I tested positive the first time, except there's a wellness clinic to Mashpee, Hawaii. And he's very good, his wife has it, and he opened the clinic because he saw a need. I went 7 years to 8 doctors. I got the rash in '94.
Yeah, so we're in the prevention business, prevent the tick bite in the first place. Yes, ma'am?
So we do have a lot of conservation lands, and I've been involved in a few school field trips out to there, and I want to tell you something that I found amazing and that I thought was really great. At the end of our time, and we said that ticks are a problem and poison ivy is a problem, but at the end of the time, before they got on the bus, I said, well, okay, now we're going to have to do a tick check. And I was about to explain what we were going to do. I didn't have to do that. These guys were partners. They knew exactly what to do. They're checking. They said, Betsy, can we check you too? And I said, sure. But of course, these little nymphs, you really can't.
Well, one of the things we're
See.
going to do is that my research colleague at UMass, Steve Rich, they produced temporary tick tattoos that show what they actually look like and then the actual life stages to help teach kids how to do a tick check and help them generate, the proper search image. So we're looking forward to getting a bunch of those produced.
Yeah, well, the kids are great, and they soak it up.
Oh, sure. I mean, I
Yeah.
met a bunch of kids when I had a last weekend at Brewster Conservation Day, and they were very astute, which was good. Yes.
How long does one of these yard spray treatments remain effective?
You get about 2 to 3 weeks of residual control before bacteria break it down to a low enough level where it's not effective anymore.
Larry, is that also with the applicators? Is that also commercial as well? Not the ones that come through the house, so it's 2 to 3 weeks?
Yes, because the products that they would use are very similar. It's not
Okay.
exactly permethrin, it's bifenthrin, so it's a brother-sister sort of thing.
Okay.
So it has the same mode of action, about the same residual control. Yes, David?
Is it okay if I ask a question?
It's okay with me, but.
It's fine.
So-
Please do.
Thank you. Larry, if the sort of the full life of permethrin in the environment is 2 or 3 weeks, and you treat an area, what is the likelihood that you're going to have to retreat that area given the natural habits of the tick? It's not as if they're going to once again surge into an area unoccupied by ticks. You've treated the area has been treated and will stay free of ticks
Until
for some
other
time.
animals bring them in and repopulate it. So with our recommendations for the yard spray, I recommend late May and late June, and that kind of gets you through that window of nymph stage activity. And then again in mid-October when the next generation of adult stage ticks are out.
So it takes the adult stage tick to repopulate an area that has been eradicated by a treatment.
Well, no, because if, let's say, tick larvae are feeding on a mouse, and they're done feeding, and wherever that mouse is, when they drop off, that's where the nymphs are gonna be. So it's all the life stages.
So I'm just interested, and we always ask this question whenever there's an application of some sort of product. What other organisms does it affect?
It's a broad spectrum insecticide. So things that live in the leaf litter, like springtails, you would have a suppression in populations, but those creatures have, they recolonize areas very quickly. So the use of permethrin is not a Rachel Carson Silent Spring scorched earth sort of tactic. So it's short-term benefit, short-term, some collateral. That makes sense?
Yes, that's exactly what I was asking.
A couple things. First of all, you need to be careful around water bodies with the permethrin.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
They're very toxic to fish.
Right.
So you don't want to be spraying in an area where you would have potential drift into a water body. That's true.
Do you have any data on the tick tubes that they
Yes,
help?
I do.
Oh, okay.
I get questions about that product all the time. If you're not familiar with this, it's a little cardboard tube with cotton balls treated with permethrin. The idea is the mice will steal the cotton balls and they get tick-free. There were two multi-year replicated trials, one in Connecticut and one in New York. And I read the papers, I spoke with each of the researchers. They each found that those tick tubes had no material impact on tick populations. And the reason for it is mice aren't compelled to steal cotton balls just because they're there, and not all tick-carrying animals steal cotton balls. So birds don't, chipmunks don't.
And just one other thing that is an aside about the reporting, it's really limited on the Cape, the reporting from medical offices. So your data is really skewed because
Oh, it
of
is.
that.
We can easily multiply those numbers by 10, and maybe even that's not the right number.
Yeah.
And it's a problem not just on the Cape, it's a problem everywhere. DPH is revising the way they are acquiring incidence rate data. They're now going to be looking at insurance claims as a better index of what's going on.
I have a question. I have a 2 acres in a lot of
Yeah.
turkeys,
Excuse me,
species of birds.
I think we should probably have people speak into the microphone, just, and identify yourself. You can just lift it right out of that little holder there.
Get back in.
Thank you.
I'm Sharon Eddy. I live at 145 Blacksmith Shop in West Falmouth. Well, like I said, I have a lot of, the deer used to come right down my driveway, a whole family of them when I built my house in '91. And yeah, it seems to have been growing, the tick population. This is the worst year I can ever remember. And I don't know what the active ingredient is in this pyrethrin, but I'd like to know if it can kill the ticks. Maybe, you know, it would make common sense that it would kill other life forms. So, I don't know. I don't know what the data is on that. But, you know, I really don't know when they stopped spraying. When I was young, very young, they used to spray, you know, in town, around the, you know, woods and stuff, properties. But they don't do that. Marshall used to do the same thing. They stopped doing it. So now we have this problem, and I don't know how, I'm looking to get away from this area, to be honest. It's that bad. My dog got it on my property. My niece came and visited. She got a tick on her and tested positive for Lyme. 30 days doxycycline is the treatment. But if we don't put a handle on the growth of the insect population, which maybe it'll die out, I have no clue. Maybe it comes and goes in cycles. But like I said, this has been the worst. My mother in Marshall had one on her. My son in Dennisport. So I would like to see more control using some sort of a, I don't know, if they can find something, it would be great. Because it's not a fun disease, Lyme. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's an excellent segue for us to kind of explain why we have asked Larry to speak to you guys tonight. For those of you who don't know, I'm Mallory Langler. I'm the assistant health agent in town, and Dave and I have really partnered with Larry at this point, but have taken an interest in his work because we're hoping to take a more active stance in Falmouth. We think that public education is great, and we can educate the public as to the dangers that are out there and why it's really bad to get bitten by a tick. But we feel that with all of the conservation land here and all of the outdoor recreation areas that we promote as a town, we need to take some responsibility and be more active in our treatment of that habitat and what we can control, such as the tick population. We are in early stages, but we're hoping to devise a plan. I'm glad you mentioned it, ma'am, but we want to start spraying, limited spraying of certain areas in town. We've discussed some areas along the bike path, potentially BB Woods. Again, this is very early stages, but the reason we asked Larry to come here tonight is because we're hoping for some feedback from the Conservation Committee as to any concerns you might have, any areas that you would absolutely wish to see not touched by this, just as we're in the development stage of this plan before we go before the Board of Selectmen. Dave, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Mallory. we realize this.
Excuse me, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
you're gonna have to
Get
go
you
for the
going.
microphone.
Dave Carrickman, Health Agent. Thank you, Mallory. This is a problem that's vexing us all. I mean, I don't know that there are any of us who have not been touched in some small way, if not a large way, by an encounter with a tick. And now we have a new player in the game, and it's the Lone Star tick. And it's changing the game because he's popping up in places where we didn't expect that there was going to be a problem. And ironically, he's popping up in places that are frequented by many of our residents and visitors alike. These are not remote and exotic places in town that are hard to get to. They're well publicized, well traveled, and a major draw for all of us. That happens to be the bike path. So it kind of underscores the problem that we have. We're never going to be able to eradicate ticks selectively or any other insect that is a vector for pathogens. But we're as with the mosquito control district, they focus on the areas where the mosquitoes that are biters that transmit disease happen to thrive. That's their methodology. Our methodology can't quite be like that because ticks are terrestrial and they're everywhere. They don't depend on water bodies, which we could easily find in the case of mosquitoes, for their breeding. They're everywhere. So you sort of have to take a reverse kind of view of this. It's not where the ticks are so much as where the people and the ticks interact. So if you look at that kind of, use that kind of analysis to break it down, you know, we've got these recreational areas, we've got conservation lands, we've got land trusts that have public access, and we have a lot of people who are using these properties. And Larry has kind of honed in on that with his observation of what's going on with the Lone Star tick, and there it is. He's out there on the bike path. We have a lot of people to use the bike path. As a community, we enjoy ourselves. We enjoy the company of others. We like to be outdoors and experience the environment, but there's that problem that we have. So we've reached out to the Chamber of Commerce. They're not. They're embracing this idea that we should have a campaign to educate visitors. But we believe that visitors probably don't have the knowledge that we do about this particular problem, and certainly many of us have been caught off guard. We don't really have a full quiver of arrows to use against them. We're just learning about things such as a treatment for your clothing that can last through multiple washings. There are commercially available articles of clothing that you can buy that are treated by a proprietary process that uses the same chemical, and also there are companies that will take your article of clothing, treat it the same way they treat the textiles they use to make their clothing, and your clothing is treated with permethrin that lasts for 70 washings or 10 years. So these are the kinds of things we're trying to do on the passive side to get people educated. But once again, circling back to this idea about the conservation lands and all the other public lands that we have, we take the view that there's one more step we can take. And we spoke with town department head individuals and the town manager and others. We had a meeting. Larry was present, made a presentation. We're trying to get the various players in town government on board with the idea that we need to take it to the next level, which is we need to do something affirmative and positive. Education is passively laid out there. Some people will take advantage of the information, some people won't. We have visitors that are totally unknowledgeable and unfamiliar with this threat. A lot of people come here, they think this is a chance for them to experience a wonderful environment, but they're urbanites. They've never had to deal with anything like this. They're totally unprepared for the consequences of a fairly innocent foray out into the woods, taking a hike in BB Woods, or walking along the bike path and having to step aside while somebody on a bicycle passes by, and therein is the problem. We feel that a more active approach is appropriate for the town, and we're trying to build a consensus that that's the way we would like to go. Mallory coordinated with AmeriCorps and was, with the assistance of Jennifer, was able to do a little bit of selective clearing in BB Woods. That's a first step, a little bit of clearing, and then taking the understanding of the natural habits of the ticks in mind, we can take it to the next level, which is selective clearing and some selective application of pesticides. Now that's a big jump for a lot of people. We have to understand the tick, and we have to understand the benefit of selective clearing, and we have to understand the benefit of the chemical tools that we have. And Larry's done a pretty good job of describing permethrin. The idea that you treat your clothing, that's an excellent idea. That you can buy it, that it is even longer lasting than this application that you can apply yourself, that's excellent. So Larry, that's great that you're thinking about having these little like rinsing stations for permethrin, where it would have a double effect. It would educate, and it would also, for the moment, for 6 washings, it would protect the individuals. But taking it to the next step, I think, is going to require the participation of all of us. I mean, that's why we've sort of come together. We've got the Board of Health, obviously that's, with a keen interest of theirs, and we have the Conservation Commission, because you guys have some involvement with these public lands. So, at this point, maybe what we need to do is have a discussion. I don't know that I can add more now without hearing from you folks.
All I have to say, Madam Chairman, is that I have been talking to Mallory and Dave. Matt, your AmeriCorps intern, did go out, widen some trails on baby woods that were completely overgrown. So we have started to clear some trails that are problematic, but it's the application of the permethrin that I think is the ultimate goal on some of these trails. I think the bike path is a great place to start, but we have to be very careful, at least along the water. We have a lot of wetlands along the bike path, but there are places we could absolutely do a pilot project on spraying permethrin, and a lot of the trails we could utilize that tool as well.
Has anything been done to kind of identify or quantify the places that have priority in terms of where the ticks and the people interact?
We've had that conversation amongst ourselves, and at this point where it's really in its nascent stages, we can take a couple of different approaches. We can try to create an experiment, a natural experiment, and it would require the gathering of a lot of data. I think the other way that you could go at this point, when we have modest resources, is to maybe just make an intuitive guess as to where it would be most effective. And I think that you have to integrate that notion with where people are always going to be coming in contact with the habitat. So from sort of the global perspective, you're going to be looking for the habitat, and then if you're going to develop a methodology, you would go and you would sample for tick populations. Or you could jumpstart that by just saying, we know the habitat, and we know that there are people who pass through that habitat. We should go there and do that. Permethrin's relatively inexpensive. One of the things that we have to do is we have to look down the road and figure that this is going to be something that you're going to have to sustain to work. And you want it to be effective for not only us, but for literally all generations. You have to have a program. And so the program is going to probably have to have some underpinnings. We're going to have to quantify what we're doing at some point and develop some sort of a rationale for having an item for a budgetary item, so we can ask for money at town meeting, and we can incorporate the resources of the DPW, and if they happen to have a licensed pesticide applicator, that would be a savings for the town, and so forth. So right now we're just looking at this as sort of from a state of desperation. We've got a situation that is literally out of control, and we don't know where to begin, but you need to begin somewhere. So we're trying to take our best guess as how to begin this. And we don't want to get too far out there and get going in the wrong direction. It's a modest approach, but we understand that we have to build on this.
Go ahead, Betsy.
I have a couple of comments. One is, are you aware of the fact that the 300 Committee has an active trail clearing program?
I was not aware of that.
Well, I'll put it out there for any of you who would like to get on their list, and it's done in the wintertime. And you know, however many people sign up, they do different sections of trails. So there is an
I'd like to
active,
talk with them.
yeah, and they have done BB Woods, but that was probably 5 years ago. And stuff, you know, new spring comes and stuff grows back. The second is, I think this is a really good idea. You already, I mean, I'm concerned about places that have, and I'm glad you brought that up, places that where this could wash into water bodies. But, you know, I think if you, even right now, we could sit down and look at the bike path, we could look at some of the major trails, and there's some data out there, certainly in the bike path, the bike committee has data on how many people use the bike path. But there's some data on how many, some of these, how much, I don't know which areas, but some areas, some of the hiking areas, and maybe start the program with targeting those areas. And then, but my other comment is, this woman mentions that she has all these problems with ticks in her area. Well, I also live in West Falmouth, but I live more towards the water. And my area has virtually no ticks. I mean, I have dogs, and if there were ticks around, they would be picking them up. And so,
Well, that brings me to one thing.
what?
That brings me to, you know, a thought that I had. I was talking to one of the landscapers who does the tick spraying, the permethrin spraying, and he had mentioned there were certain pockets in town that he had noticed had quite a bit of activity, so maybe asking them to give you some
You're onto
data.
something. We actually sort of like were brainstorming, and we were thinking that, you know, we certainly could, reach out to landscapers and other people who are out there in the environment and might be able to give us feedback. But we're thinking, and maybe I'm being a little crazy here, but we could even come up with something like a little survey monkey tool where part of our tick education materials that we hand out would also have some place where people could go and they could online indicate to us where, you know, I saw, you know, like the hummingbird tracker in the springtime, you know, where the first hummingbird showed up and what the date was, and then
A citizen science
Exactly.
program as to
Exactly.
where the hot
And
spots
then
are.
use that to try to figure out what's going on here. And we'd have to be careful how we interpret the data, because you may have people picking them up and saying, well, I got it here at their house, but actually they got it when they were walking over here, or vice versa. But we'd have to refine that, but that's an idea, to try to get that kind of tool working for us so that we don't waste our resources.
It just, didn't I read somewhere, I don't know whether it was your program, but somewhere did a sampling of where ticks were, this is a couple of years ago, with, you know, walking along a trail and pulling along like a white sheet, and they'll attach to it or something that,
That was our research.
yeah, and don't they attach? I mean, can't you find areas
Oh,
where
yeah.
where they're more versus
We use the
less?
most expensive sampling equipment known to man, a broomstick with white flannel.
Perfect. I love it. Yeah, so I mean,
Well,
when,
that's part of building sort of the case for some funding, is that we know that they're there, and we know that we go there, and we would like to prevent the interaction by making them go away before we get there. That's it in a nutshell.
yeah, it's good. Do it.
This is it, this is how it begins.
I think we're gonna have to just sit down, bring the 300 committee in, even bring areas, programs like Salt Pond, because Salt Pond manages the knob, which is, I just wrote that down, which is incredibly heavily used. And, you know, put us all in a room and figure out, you know, what our priority spots are. Do we widen these trails? Do we try a permethrin program on these trails? Are these near water bodies? And go from there. I think the board's supportive of starting some type of program to combat this issue.
Thank you.
And
Just baby
thanks for
steps.
the presentation was great.
Thank you.
Even missing the 2 slides that you
They
missed.
were great slides, though. Matt did a lot of work
He
out
did an
there.
excellent job. I know he's no longer working here with us, but
No, he's
Matt,
still-
is he still
yeah,
doing
he's
okay,
still
well, I
doing
wish
it.
he was doing that, because he did a fantastic job clearing those trails for us. He was a huge, huge help, so.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, and by the way, during our presentation to the
department heads. I came prepared to give you a similar demonstration. Unfortunately, the nymphs
Thankfully, they
that
were
Larry
done.
brought expired before I could volunteer them for the permethrin on fabric treatment. But at our other meeting, I brought in a sock that I bought from one of these companies that provides the pre-treatment and commercially available sock. And Larry brought in, there were 4 adult deer ticks or dog ticks?
They were dog ticks.
Dog ticks. Within 7 minutes, 3 of them were down for the count. One held on for about 15 minutes, but just by being there, he had already received a killing dose, and he wasn't going to go on to fight anybody, even though he may have been alive. But the killing time was remarkable. And that's available in a can, and you can also, as I said, purchase these products online. You know, just to search on insect-proof clothing and you'll come up with.
Okay, so they're not carried locally particularly.
Well, we did speak with Michael Kasparian from the Chamber of Commerce, and he was going to speak to some local businesses that he thought would be a good match for carrying those products. So hopefully soon we'll start seeing them on shelves.
Right.
And just as an aside, the DPW provides this on the shelf for their helpers, for their workers. Their workers can just.
So is conservation.
Conservation.
Department.
Just apply it like crazy, liberally. So it's easy to use, and it's very effective.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deb.
Thank you.
All right.
Good speaker, wasn't
So,
Okay.
moving on to
Thank you.
the requests for determination of applicability. Give you a second to get back to your seat there.
By the time you're done reading, Madam Chairman, I will be sitting down, ready to go.
All right. First, John Williams, 147 Edgewater Drive West, East Falmouth, Massachusetts, for permission to remove the existing deck and construct in a smaller footprint to remodel the house interior and to bring in electric and water to the dock.
Negative 2 under the state and bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Richard Brainerd, 44 Jewelers Avenue, East Falmouth, Massachusetts, for permission to replace 2 dock pilings as approved under DEP 25-1160.
Yes, Madam Chairman, the staff is recommending a negative 2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
Second.
Does anybody have a comment on this application? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, 86 Water Street, Woods Hole, Massachusetts, for permission to repair an existing 40-foot by 4-foot by 1-foot concrete pile cap beam located at the transition from the elevated pier to land with deteriorated concrete bag and placed on a float to be removed by a crane.
I have to
Yeah.
recuse myself.
Yes,
from
and
this.
I also.
Okay, yeah. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. McKay, your comments?
I'm going
We're out of officers
seniority
here.
down there. We're recommending a negative 2 on the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So
We've been
moved.
working with
Second.
Schultz Marine on that.
All those in favor, is there any comment from the public? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous with 2 recusals. Highwater Realty Trust, care of Saul J. Pannell, 129 Penzance Road, Falmouth, Massachusetts, for permission to resurface the existing tennis court within the same footprint with a clay surface to remove a 20-foot access through vegetation and replace trees and shrubs and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping.
Yes, Madam Chairman, we are recommending a negative 2 on the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
Second.
Any comment? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, so moved. William Trailer, 3 Old Dock Road, West Falmouth, Massachusetts, for permission to elevate the existing dwelling and convert into 2 3-bedroom dwelling units, remove the existing paved drive and replace with smaller gravel drive, add 2 decks, install a new Title V, I assume, sewage disposal system, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping.
Yes, Madam Chairman, a statement bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed. We on,
Trailer, 3 Old Dock Road.
yep, -2.
So moved.
Could I add one thing?
Yes.
I submitted the revised plan after I talked with Mark, and you should have that as dated just July 10th. That includes taking down one sycamore maple. It's at the northeast corner of the property.
Mark okay with that?
I discussed that with him. I don't know, I mean, it's dying, it has a lot of bark loss on it. I
To
discussed
answer
it.
my question, you did discuss it with Mark
Yes.
then? Okay, he's aware of it?
Yes.
Okay, I'll talk to him tomorrow.
Maureen's
We
not
didn't
here
have it
tonight.
on this one.
Yes, Peter?
Does this increase the footprint?
It does, but the two, well, it decreases the impervious footprint because you're removing all of the pavement. There's a semicircular driveway going through, that's all coming out, and it's going to be replaced with 2 much smaller crushed stone driveways. So there are 2 small decks going in the back, but overall the impervious surface is being reduced, and actually the curb cut right at the intersection is being removed. So all of the stormwater runoff going toward Old Dock Road 28A is being eliminated, or at least reduced.
This is just land subject to coastal storm flow.
Correct.
I'm sorry, what?
Shouldn't the tree be a second RDA? Is that,
Why?
because it's not on this one. I just,
Oh,
I guess
was
that's up to Jen, the tree, that it's not on this one.
whether we need another
Oh, but that's
RDA.
something you could-
No,
you could
no,
do
we can handle
as
that.
an
Okay.
administrative
Don't worry about
approval
it.
if
We'll
needed.
handle that. We're still going to recommend a -2 in the statement bylaw.
So
Madam
moved
Chairman, I'm
again.
going to recuse.
The tree will let you know, Tom. When I talk to Mark, I just kind of caught me off guard on that one, so.
Yeah.
I'll talk to Mark, I'm sure it won't be a problem, but,
I don't know if he had seen it or not.
yeah.
since-
So it's okay, it's okay.
Okay, we need a second.
Second.
Jamie's recused. All those in favor say, anybody else out there? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous with 1 recusal. Richard and Sharon Lees, 17 Brown Court, Falmouth, Massachusetts, for permission to remove the existing garage and construct a new garage, breezeway, addition, porch, to install dry wells, a new driveway, regrade around the house, to elevate out of flood zone, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping.
Yes, Madam Chairman, we are recommending a -2 under the statement bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments?
Just elevating the house, or just the grades, adjacent grades?
That's good.
Just the grade.
Just,
Thank you.
Where's Brown Court?
It's, over there.
okay,
Off of Queen Street.
okay,
Queen in that neighborhood.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm just wondering
Maybe it's
sort of.
off King.
Allen's
generally.
Ave,
That's
right?
close enough.
yeah.
Over there.
That
Perfect.
away. All right, have we got a motion?
We have a motion and a second.
And a
We
second.
do, okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous, so moved. Eric Stormer and Amy Navala, 131 Coonamessett Circle, Falmouth, Massachusetts, for permission to construct a new deck approximately 12 feet by 15 and a half feet with 4 concrete footings.
Yes, Madam Chairman, we are recommending a -2 under the bylaw and -3 under the state with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Brad Partridge, 4 Eldridge Drive, Falmouth, Massachusetts, for permission to pump, fill, and abandon 2 cesspools and to install a new Title V sewage disposal system.
Yes, Madam Chairman, we are recommending a +3 and a +4 on this one. The septic system is it's a really tight lot, it really is, but the septic system is incredibly close to the top of the coastal bank. It's a completely sloping property in the back. I don't think the location, the system's gonna change because of the location of wells on neighboring properties and that property. It's just that we want to be able to condition it, you know.
You want an NOI?
Yeah, we would like an NOI, just so that we can condition it. There are a number of large trees that need to come down, and it's just concerning to the staff under an RDA. Tom's aware of it. He may not like it, but he's aware of it.
Tom would like to speak.
I talked to Mark and then this afternoon.
Yeah.
And so it's probably, I don't know, it makes a difference if I just withdraw rather than getting.
It's either one,
Yeah,
either
but
we
it's-
withdraw or we give you a positive hearing, you gotta come back and
Yeah,
talk.
that makes no difference there, I guess. I'll
It's
just-
not an issue.
I'll take the positive.
I'll make a motion to accept staff's recommendation of a
We'll be
positive.
back with a notice for.
Thank you,
for
Tom.
the-
Jamie?
Recuse.
Oh, you're recusing, okay.
You need a second.
We have a
Second.
All right,
Well, guys,
Jamie's recused. Any comment from anyone else?
It's to accept staff's recommendation of a positive
Correct.
determination.
Steve, you seconded that?
I did.
Yeah, okay.
All those in favor of the motion to accept it on positive 3?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, unanimous with the one recusal.
I'm a backup seconder.
You're a good second.
Yes, you
got
are.
into the spirit.
All right, moving along.
We'll get Mark and Peter into the
Request for hearings under a notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. So, tonight we have Daniel Palmquist, 46 Rivers End Road, East Falmouth, for permission to construct a 4-foot by 51-foot wood dock, 3-foot by 16-foot ramp, 6-foot by 16-foot float, 2 spring tiles, and the associated excavating and landscaping. Good evening, Jack.
Jack, what's the date on your plan over there? Just, what's the date on your plan over there? Okay.
Okay. Before I forget, one of the questions I had on that demonstration is what effect it might have on vernal pools, because that's standing water.
Well, we don't want it in any
Yeah, I didn't
water.
know if there was overspray or anything, but it occurred to me that that's a sensitive area and.
Yes.
Jack, we're aware of it. It's
We're gonna
gonna
have
take
to-
a while to
Yeah,
develop
Yeah,
a
well, it occurred to me, I
program.
didn't know if it,
We're not going out tomorrow and spraying, but,
I didn't think so, but I had to say it anyway.
no, I understand, trust me, it's one of my first
Yeah, it could be
bees.
a big job just reviewing the
Good evening.
proposals.
For the record, my name is Jack Landers-Colley. I'm a civil engineer in private practice. My office is at 634 North Falmouth Highway, obviously in North Falmouth. And I've been retained by the Palmquists to prepare the plan that's before you this evening and the notice of intent for the, hopefully, the proposed
Jack,
approval.
can you speak up just
Yeah,
a bit so
I-
Susan can
Okay.
I can't even hear you.
Okay.
That microphone doesn't do much for us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Only for the
That's
TV.
Microphone,
Okay.
please,
Yes.
for our captive audience at home.
Nothing terribly important, other than I've been
That's not
retained
the
by the
capital.
Palmquist to present this
Those guys are
application
short.
before you. Let me go through a list of what we've done to get to this point. Our office did an on-the-ground instrument survey of the property. We also performed bathymetry and put the bathymetry on mean low water datum. After we saw the depths, we recommended a shellfish survey be done, which was done by a local firm and should be part of the submission. Based on that information, we recommended that they prepare an idea of what they would like to do. My clients are from Chicago. They had an opportunity to buy a piece of land on Cape Cod that had waterfront. And they're in the process of trying to figure out exactly how they're going to utilize this dock, should it be approved. They did tell me that they have family that uses small craft, so what we did is we did propose having a hitching area for canoes or kayaks, but they also were interested in a sailing vessel, or I shouldn't say sailing, but a motoring vessel that they could possibly buy and lay up to. And they don't own anything now because, quite frankly, they are moving to the area. They wanted to see if they could get the approval first. Based on the approval, then they'll know what they can and can't do. In the course of doing our work, we did research and found the license of these two docks. In fact, I think 20 years ago, I actually got this one licensed. It's owned by Eugene Black. And we located them. As part of this mission, we also notified the harbor master. The harbor master did make a comment. His comment was, his only comment was, I recommend moving it back so the float is at contour interval -3, or 3 feet of draft. I like to keep it in this location if at all possible, because we're really not in the channel. When you look at this dock and this dock, and the closest moorings are here and here, I don't think it's an impediment, and I just think where you can get extra draft without a substantial impediment on the environment or increasing the length of the dock, and you can see the dock is really to the seaward edge of the float is 72.5 feet. I think that's modest compared to some of the ones we've seen in the past. And we are permitted, I think, to apply for docks up to 100 feet in length based on certain circumstances in the local bylaw. So to that point, I would like to keep it in this same location. If the board sees fit differently, so be it. We also got, and I don't know if the staff has it, we just got a report from the Division of Marine Fisheries, and it was pretty vanilla. They didn't have any comment. Did you get that?
We did get it. I wouldn't exactly call it vanilla.
I don't recall seeing
And
it.
I call it rum raisin.
Well,
I
anyway,
didn't see it.
I think its findings was
Or cherry
similar to the
pie.
findings of
Vanilla.
Can I see it?
their findings were similar to the findings of the people performing the shellfish report. We have designed it. There is a second page, keeping in mind all the criteria that the town likes to see: maximum pile spacing, light transmission through the deck, 5 feet lateral axis along the shoreline, a minimum of 3 feet of water at the float, be functional but to the point, and I think this dock is. Having said that, for those people who haven't been to the site, we do have an existing house here. We have a top of bank along here. This section of structure that's in a lighter brown is existing and is properly licensed by this board. And in fact, when we submitted this application, I can't remember if it was Jen or Mark, but someone made a comment. Oh, when we did a pre-application, there were some open-ended permits. We were retained by the Palmquist to close those permits, and we have done so. So from that perspective, anything that's been done in the past has been reconciled, got the approvals, and recorded at the Registry of Deeds. I think I've already said too much, because I think this dock applies to your regulations. And I'll take comments.
All right, thank you, Jack. Jen?
Jen.
Jack, did you get a letter from the neighbor that I asked you to get because of the distance to the float to the property line?
Yeah, the property lines are strange.
I'm sorry, what was your
Remember
comment?
we
Property boundaries are,
Remember we discussed the fact that you needed a 10-foot.
Immediately after you asked me to do that, I did send them letters, and I have not heard from either one of them. We sent them letters, we sent them a plan.
Yeah,
I'm just telling you what I did.
understand that,
Okay,
Jack,
I can't force them to send us a letter. What they did do, or didn't do, they didn't show up, so I'm not sure if that means anything. We did give them a copy of the plan, and the certified mail was returned by both neighbors. So
I understand
I
that,
can't
Jack,
do more
but
than that.
unfortunately, your dock configuration, I mean, your dock configuration is pretty good, except for the fact that you are encroaching on that 10-foot property boundary issue, and, you know, you need to do everything possible to secure permission from that neighbor.
I have two comments. I'd like to, well, I have three
You
comments.
can,
I'd like to,
wait,
I'd like to,
I'm not done yet. Second of all, I'd rather it be in deeper water because you have a floating system and you need 3 feet of water underneath the lowest portion of your dock. You're almost there, Jim. You're almost
Well, we
there.
are actually
Yeah.
at 4.
That's
we
why
have-
I want you to stay at 4 feet.
Oh,
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
What I'm saying is stay there. Now, we go back to the issue of the configuration encroaching on that 10-foot
Okay.
property boundary. So now make your 2 points.
There's a problem on both sides.
On both sides.
There's a problem on both sides, I believe.
oh, my comments are this.
7 on one and.
We're 9.7 on one side to a spring pile. We could conceivably move it a foot, so it would be 10 feet on that side. That's the first thing. The second is if your bylaw didn't preclude us putting a float perpendicular to the shoreline, we could apply to the 10 feet on both sides, but it doesn't. So we put it
Don't
parallel
blame us,
instead of The third is we actually have given you the distances to the portions of the float, our proposed float, to their existing structures. To the south, we are 66.3 feet away. More than adequate room for Mr. Black to navigate. As you know, Great Pond is restricted in the size of the vessels because of a bridge. So we're not going to get the mini Queen Mary in here, or a large sailing vessel, or a deep keel vessel. To the north there, they have existing spring piles, which are at the closest point 42.3 feet. So in terms of functionality,
Right, Jack, refresh my memory. How
Or else
far away from the
Greg would
property
have said
boundaries do you need to be in compliance with Chapter 91?
I think we have to be 10 feet, but we're going to be,
And
I
so if you need-
anticipated this question, so
Yeah.
we're going to
Oh, good.
petition the Chapter 91 people. I think,
The
I
Chapter
believe the
91
logic-
people are going
excuse
to
me?
require you to get permission from the property owner, I'm pretty sure.
I anticipated this question might come up, so I was hoping that the board would take this position, that it's not an environmental issue, it's an issue between the state and the neighbors. And I think it should be settled there, because if they can't come to an agreement, we have to come back to you. It's as simple as that.
Lucky us.
Well, I mean, we could condition it that way.
That would work for me too, because the other choice is maybe to make the float a little bit smaller. But I don't want to deceive you. If they have a short float, they could still put a slightly larger boat on it and may not be
I
10
would
feet
think
away.
that your clients would want something
Jack,
in writing
unfortunately-
that, you know,
I,
keeps them out of trouble on this, like something that goes with the deed or.
Right at the get-go, I told them there might be a riparian rights issue and to seek advice of an attorney in that skill set. They had been advised. They asked me to proceed knowing that that question may come up later because they have to get 4 approvals. Obviously, the town Concom, the Town Board of Appeals, the State of Massachusetts, and the Army Corps of Engineers. I truly don't think the Army Corps will say much. I believe the state will approve it because we're demonstrating we're almost 45 feet away from any other structure. And realistically, I think the state wants to, I won't say encourage docks, but certainly approve them when they know that you can navigate properly and have a functioning dock.
Jack, when's the last time you permitted a dock? Okay,
14 years ago, 15 years ago?
yeah. I want to see 10 feet. That the board can decide what they'd like to do. I
In
think
regards
the
to what?
I think the state's going to want to see 10 feet, unless they get permission from the abutting property owner. So I don't think
That-
this is.
well, that
gonna-
could very-
I
that
really
could
don't
very
think
well
this is
be.
going to be as happy and as easy as you think. But
The worst thing that happens is we come back to this board and say, we have to make the float
Again,
shorter.
sure.
That's the worst thing. I would rather present a project that I think functions and is realistic. A person lays a 18-foot boat, they don't want to put it against a 6-foot float. They want to put it against a 12-foot or a 16-foot float. We're required to keep the float less than 100 square feet, so it's 6 by 16. Could be 6 by 12.
They're always 6 by 16.
If I made it 6 by 12, we'd practically comply to that. But I didn't want to do it that way. So.
Okay.
Those are my only concerns, Madam Chairman.
All right, thank you. Peter, I know you have something.
Yes. Could you trace out the property boundaries? Because the copy that I have doesn't really show the 10-foot tip of the boundary, which is 10 feet, that's by the coastal front. I see a dotted line, that's the property line.
This right here?
Yeah. And
Yeah,
the property line actually goes through the dock so that the northern neighbor has the land under this dock, so far as I can see. But could you explain that?
Yes, I can. Okay. When determining riparian rights, it's difficult at best. And the example I'll give you, well, let me back up. First of all, you're absolutely right. This is what the subdivision plan shows. And if I were to go to the north and look at this lot actually goes like this. Yet, this dock is owned by this person because they interpret the riparian rights the same way. And then what they do is they take it perpendicular to the shoreline. There are different ways to determine riparian areas. If you had a pond, a great pond, and it was perfectly circular, all the property owners basically, if these were the property lines, would take that property line and draw it to the center of the circle. Well, that would be the riparian area. In this case, Great Pond is more elongated. It's like a big rectangle. And so what we do is we go normal to the center line of the pond. And by doing so, you have this arrangement with the riparian rights. I originally thought this dock, which we knew the license ran with this property, was actually on the wrong lot until I looked at it and I actually looked at the filing that was made, and they made the same interpretation of riparian rights as I did. And it was approved by this board.
Well, the question is, as I see the plan book, it has 10 feet of frontage on Great Pond, and that's it. And you are talking about...
I can go one step further, because I actually looked at the subdivision, and I spoke to one of the surveyors that worked on that original subdivision back in, I think, the 70s. And quite frankly, they didn't pay a lot of attention to the shoreline. They took a perimeter plan and they subdivided it up. And I'll be honest with you, he couldn't tell me if they located the wetlands on the shoreline. Because in those days, first of all, in the 70s, you didn't even have to deduct wetlands from your gross lot area. If you had 40,000 square foot zoning, there was a time in Falmouth, if you had 10,000 feet of upland and 30,000 feet of wetland, that was a lot. Now it's changed. You have to have either 90% or 100% of that minimum area is upland. It's just, we evolved, this town figured it out that zoning wasn't quite right to have no explanation as to how much upland you should have for a lot. So it changed. This subdivision is quite old, and it fell into that nuance of we didn't look at those issues from a planning perspective. Secondly, there's been retreat all along here. So, and we can't figure it out. Originally, the property lines went back here, and that's one of the reasons why I said I don't think they surveyed the shoreline that carefully, because right now the property line is back, or the shoreline's back here, and that's why it's only about 10 feet here, but it's about 30 feet here. The shoreline is retreated, and if the shoreline was even further back, one could argue that even more. But that's not.
This is really not a concert, it's not in our purview. So when it comes to a question like this, I think that the most practical thing for us to do is make our decision, and then if it's a favorable decision, to condition it on the other necessary approvals.
I do want to let you know, I gave it a great deal of thought, though.
I believe you.
So.
Okay,
We know
Kristen,
your background.
was that it for you?
Yep, yep.
Okay, thank you. Kristen?
I just have a couple of things. The removal of the float, it's not clear in your plan what you're going to do with it, whether you're going to remove it or take it off-site or leave it, or...
It has to be removed. The walkway can be placed on the dock. The float, there's a launching ramp, I think 3 doors or 3 houses down. And I believe we put in the narrative that it has to be stored on the upland a minimum of 20 feet away from the bank. So that was...
Okay, so that's not what was on here, but that's that's what you're going to do. Okay. And
No,
then-
I don't think it was shown on
I
the
remember
plan.
hearing about barging it.
I beg your pardon?
the text.
In the text.
I believe it's included in the text.
Yeah, on the plan, it's...
You may be right. I thought it just said you were going to barge it. I don't remember the 20 feet thing.
The intent is that the float be stored entirely on uplands, is the intent.
I think Kristen does have a good point, though, that we should have a note on the plan to that effect.
Because, well, the note on the plan says it may be off-site, or it may be on-site, or it may be moved across the wetland. It may not be moved across the wetland. So it's not really
All right.
clear. That's all. And
We
then-
will clarify that for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then the other thing is, there's a note on your plan that says lighting details will be provided by the owner. And I'm just wondering if that is necessary, first of all, because the other docks in the area don't have real lighting that, you want to kind of stay consistent. And we need to have more than just they'll be determined
Okay.
by the owner.
Okay, the question is just the lighting, not the water. Is that right? I didn't hear you.
The lighting.
Okay. Well, we always recommend that they have some sort of downcast lighting. If they leave early in the morning or they return late in the day, I think some lighting at the end of the dock would be beneficial. It should be downcasting, it should be low illumination. I can certainly clarify or specify the type of illumination and the placing of the lamps.
Yeah, it's
think
just that
that we need that.
you want to, I would want consistency with the other docks in the area that are wood and no lighting and, I mean, the lighting does have an effect on the habitat, and if they leave it on,
Well, that's not fatal to this. If that is an issue, because I did have this discussion with them, if that is a major issue with the board, it certainly can be something that's
No,
eliminated.
it's just something that needs to be
To
clarified.
go back,
That's all.
we have here, the ramp and float shall be stored either in the remote location off-site or removed at a location off-site, then stored in an upland location. Ramp and float shall not be moved across or stored in the wetlands. That's on the second page. Okay, so,
And then the actual structure is going to be made from fiberglass, or is it?
are you talking about the decking itself?
Yes.
I don't know if they're going to use a aluminum, steel, or fiberglass decking. They come in 3 different ways. I think the major point is that we have the light transmission. So our standard is to provide the light transmission. If they want to use steel and burn their little toesies on a sunny day, that's their choice. If they want to use fiberglass, that's their choice too, as long as we have that light transmission. At least that is what I
The
was thinking.
flow-through decking usually comes in that composite material.
The
Yeah.
composite.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just know that there's been problems with the aluminum reflecting for other, the reflection and, again, the consistency with what's in the area, which are all
Do you
wooden
mean
docks.
reflection from light?
Right.
Um, I honestly, never even occurred to me.
Well,
We
you
can
could-
specify a composite
Yeah, I mean, you
decking,
could try looking at one in the sun, and then you would see what
so.
reflection looks like. It's just not consistent with the other docks in the area.
Right.
So they might want to consider being more consistent with the,
I understand, yeah, I think from an aesthetic standpoint, you're probably
I think
right,
to a
it
point.
should be. I will look at a composite decking. We did look at a composite decking, but I was kind of, like you said, I was indeterminate as to one being more significantly better than the other. And I hadn't thought that aspect of it, so.
So,
yeah.
thank you. Betsy?
I'd like to see a letter from the neighbor.
I'm sorry, what?
I'd like to see a letter from the neighbor. That was my only comment.
Okay. All I can do is try again. We can give you copies of the letters we sent them, but I can't force them to give us a letter.
And you said they both came back.
Yes.
The letters came back?
No, the green cards came
No, the
back.
green cards.
Oh,
So they got them.
The green cards
I'm
came
sorry,
back.
okay.
No, the
So they
letters
got
were
them.
delivered.
So they knew that
I
this
thought you
meeting
meant
was
the
gonna
letters
take
were
place?
undelivered.
Well, they
Oh,
must have.
absolutely.
You had
That's
said
what he said at
green
the
card.
beginning, was that
Right.
From
they
the-
got that and they didn't come to your,
Yeah,
But
once
he also
Jen
said-
told me,
You
once
also
Jen-
sent these things by certified.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, two, he got 2 green cards from each neighbor. One for this meeting and one for the plans.
Yeah, so I just, I can't do any more than that. And if they don't care to respond and say, I hate it, or I like it, I just can't do more than that. And
Okay, that's, oh, and I did have a question. This actually isn't, were you out there? Do you know what this snow fencing in the next door neighbor is for?
apparently, I kind of know.
Okay.
Apparently, they're trying to establish
That's salt marsh?
that salt marsh.
Oh, okay.
And so they're
trying to keep
it's like a
people
test
friendly.
case. They want to keep, I guess, waterfowl from disturbing I don't know if it's rhizomaceous or not, that particular plant, but they want to try to keep it they want to give it the best chance to repopulate. Let's put it that way.
Okay,
That's the explanation.
okay. Was this did they get permission to do that? I mean, I think that's a good idea, but I was just, it was just,
We'll look into it then.
I wouldn't mind if that's,
Hey, if it
if
works,
that's what
it's a
they're
great
trying to
thing.
do. But I actually did see some unhappy swans. Looking,
You can't keep everyone out.
misspelling.
No.
it's swan fencing.
Anyways.
Ugly looking swans, actually.
All right,
That's it.
That's it.
Okay.
Okay, Jamie.
I have nothing.
Steve?
No further questions.
Mark? No. Any comments from the public? All right. So,
We need to figure out, you need to go back, look at your lighting, get what kind of material you're going to use. Try once again to contact those neighbors, knock on the door if they have to, and you're going to get us the float location and an upland and more of that. How much time do you need, Jack?
I didn't hear the last one.
The float location, we want to make sure that you put
Yeah.
the upland float location on your plan. I want a scale on that second page, please. Put a scale on the second page,
Oh, sure.
because I can't figure out what's going on over there, and
There might be a variable scale.
well, I'm not quite, I can't, Jack, look at me for a minute. I need to be able to scale off to make sure that that float has 3 feet of water underneath it, underneath the lowest portion of the float. That's what the regs say.
Right.
When you look at a floating dock, it's not just the dock itself and you get 3 feet of water at the end. You have to have 3 feet of water from those.
I know, that's why we
Drum.
actually showed it.
Yeah, great, I can't
Sure.
scale it off, so put a
Okay.
scale on that for me, please.
You want a bar scale, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
But doesn't page 1 cover that adequately and not?
I
There might be
can't-
different scales.
I can't tell.
The bar scale
Because-
should be on every plan if it's critical. because
Yeah.
There might be some distortion.
No, because I need
in
to
the
look at the lowest portion of the float and not just the, you see what I'm saying?
plan.
Look at the
Oh.
top.
Well, I'm gonna tell you right now,
See what I'm saying,
there's
Jamie?
the light.
Yeah, it's actually
That's-
here.
And I'll look into the fiberglass,
Because I'm seeing this,
and we'll have the bar scale.
the lower part, but the float would be
Yeah,
here.
but see, he has a.
You're talking about the landward
Shows
side of the float.
She
Is
wants
that what
to
you want?
see that it's,
Mm.
she wants to see
I
that
wanna
it's 3
see-
feet from
flip-
the bottom
flip
of the
this
float
over.
to the.
I want to see that there's 3 feet. Like
Now, the
that.
reg doesn't say that, does it?
Yes, it
It
does.
The reg says
Wait a minute.
3 feet of water, it doesn't
No, it
say.
says 3 feet from the bottom of the float.
When
I
you
just
look-
read it 2 minutes ago.
When you're, Mark, when you're looking at a floating dock, it says 3 feet of water underneath the lowest portion of the float.
Okay.
When you're looking at a floating dock and not a fixed pier. And if you
Okay.
give me 1 second when I go back, I'll find it for you, okay?
So right here, and this doesn't help
I
you.
just
Well,
need
if
to,
you
I just
interpolated
wanted
it, you
to.
could see that there's at least 3.5 feet.
Yes,
And I know, I went through the
And I would
calculations
love to
on the
interpolate it, but just
Fine.
show it on a plan
I
for
have no
me.
problem.
Yes, okay, so what's our date?
What's our date?
All right, give me 1 second.
Well,
Yes.
Mark, give me a second, I'll get a date, and then I'll get a, how long is that gonna take you, Jack? I want you to give it one more college try on that, on
So if
that
I send it by
paper.
certified mail to the neighbor.
Knock on the door.
I have to wait at least 2 days because the postal service by law holds it 2 weeks. Okay? If I
All
send
right,
it by
Jack.
regular mail, we can schedule it.
How long is it
2
gonna
weeks out.
take you?
We don't have a meeting 2 weeks out.
So you have a meeting in 3 weeks?
We do
Think
have a
so.
We
meeting
have,
in 3
you
weeks.
can have August 2nd.
That works for me.
Okay, excellent.
At the request
Thank
of the
you, Jack.
applicant, I make a motion to continue this to August 2nd.
Second.
Thank you.
All right, any comment from the public? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous, so moved. We will see you on August 2nd.
Mary, I'm sorry, I need a minute.
Okay? We're going to take a 2-minute break. Or,
Yes, I'll get you.
let's say, realistically, 4 minutes. Ready to get back in order. So,
Are you good, Susan?
continued request for a hearing under a notice of intent, Clyde and Terrell McKee, 35 Bournes Pond Road, East Falmouth, Massachusetts, for permission to lower the grade adjacent to the existing house by 2 feet and raise the grade on the lower side of the slope 2 feet. That includes installing a stone or masonry landscape wall and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Hello, Mike.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Michael Borselli, Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant along with Neil Curran. This is a continuation of an initial hearing, and we've submitted a revised plan dated July 5th. And the revisions included adding trees, meaning existing trees. We did a very comprehensive site walk and made sure we had every tree that was in jurisdiction on the plan. There were some comments from Commissioner Harlow Hawks about that. We also added the generator to the plan. And I believe Commissioner Gurney had some questions about the toe of the slope and how we were going to ensure stabilization at the very end. So we added some more specifications on the cross sections about jute netting, staked jute netting, and that the bales of straw remain in place until such time as they just basically composted back and became part of the buffer themselves. So we're confident that that will make for a very stable toe of slope. And I think that's, oh, one other thing, there was a question about 2 floats that were out on the lawn. We contacted the owner, and those floats are in fact a swim float that's moored in Bourne's Pond and has a permit from the harbor master. So it's not a dock connected to shore. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Jim?
No.
Nothing? All right. Mark, you satisfied?
I'm happy with the response on the protecting the toe.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
Yeah, thanks for the improvement in planning.
Jamie?
I still like it.
I concur. I'm good.
Okay. Betsy?
No, I'm not on the.
Oh, not on the quorum. And Chris, you two are not on the quorum. And
Kristen is.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Krista.
That's all right. No, thanks for putting all the trees back on. You've still got the not constructed wall on there that was supposed to come off. I don't know.
Oh, I didn't know it was supposed to come off. I'm sorry. I just wanted it on there for reference so you knew at one point you did approve a wall. There's no intention of building it.
Okay. Okay. And you've got that the ornamentals will be moved up. That's great. So that's good. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments from the public? Okay. Motion, please.
Make a motion to close the hearing, take it under advisement.
Steve?
Second. Thank you.
All right.
You're welcome.
All those in
Against
favor
it,
say
yes,
aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous, so moved. Thank you.
I want to say, may I say something?
Yes.
Not about your project. 1016, 1H7.
Thank you. I'm dying over here.
For singular
1016.
purpose ownership lots, any floating section of the dock appears to have a minimum water depth of 3 feet under all portions of the floating section of the dock appear,
Thank you.
including at times with extreme low water. I have time,
Did you find it, Mark?
I listened.
10:15, you said?
1016.
16.
1016, 1H.
Page 46.
7, page 46. I enjoyed what you had to say, I listened, but
Yeah, we were desperately looking for that.
I don't think that was very sincere.
Do we have a poltergeist?
cherry
or-
pie and
Did you
ice
find
cream.
it?
Oh, there's a cord that I can't see? Okay.
We never do that.
Okay, so, next, Shirley Rothwell, 28 Drift Road, West Falmouth, Massachusetts, for permission to install a new Title V sewage disposal system within naturally vegetated resource area and buffer to construct a new 6-foot by 12-foot deck, expand existing deck, install an underground electric line, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the commission. Michael Borsali again. I represent the applicant along with Teresa Sprague. I believe we only can continue this for one real reason, and that was to reconsider options for the septic system. So we talked to our client, and I convinced Mrs. Rothwell that a tight tank system is a good idea. So she agreed, and we've revised the plans to eliminate the standard Title V septic system and replace it with a tight tank. I'm very disappointed Commissioner Hollowhawks is here tonight.
She has missed a lot.
I'm happy about that. Well, I have a question on
She'll be happy.
2 hearings with trees.
Can you not put the tight tank underneath the driveway somehow, or is it because they have to access it, or? Because it still looks like you're clearing almost as much of that dune area.
Oh, we're still doing the invasive plant removal and revegetation that was on Teresa's plan. We're putting this tank basically in the same place as the existing failed septic system tank. We're just going to swap out for a tight tank.
Okay, and then how are they going to access that? And that would be my other question.
On foot, drag a hose. I mean, just like you would for any
septic?
For any septic, yeah.
Okay, and again, there's no way to stick it under the driveway to eliminate that. Because you see on your plan, oh, hang on, I gotta find your plan for a second. Because I was talking to Mallory about, whether you needed the setbacks for the wells for the tight tank.
Right, you don't.
No, yeah, you don't.
Right.
And then I'm wondering, so if you look at your original plan, where it says the words invasives and everything, and you had it really cleared, where you have the little squiggly line that says invasives, and it's where you were putting that leach field, it looks like you're clearing all of that again.
Yeah, we're still proposing to remove all the invasives, and Teresa can speak to that. We're still doing a comprehensive invasives removal plan.
I'm thinking that, like what Maury was saying, is she didn't want you to disturb the dune by putting the leach field in, but you're almost still disturbing the dune, you're just switching out the leaf. You know what I'm saying? I think she would have preferred the tight tank underneath the driveway.
Yeah, well, it can't, because the plumbing comes under the basement floor here, and this is higher, so it would just be like very difficult.
No, I'm just pointing that out.
Well, now they're 2 separate issues.
Yeah. Okay. And Teresa, you're still doing the same?
Yeah.
You've been sitting here patiently, we'll listen to you.
So yes, we're still, Teresa Sprague, Blue Flax Design, we're still proposing to do approximately 9,000 square feet of invasive species management. So not only are we doing invasive species management over the area where the septic is going, and of course my plan is still showing the old septic system, but the invasive species plan remains the same. But we're also going to continue and do invasive species management down along the southern property line. Yeah, so that will be completely restoring the entire area. So it's about 9,000 square feet.
I have no other questions, that was just my only.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
I just have one more thing on that,
Certainly.
Chairman. There was some discussion about the fact, don't forget, a small component of this is adding this 6x12 deck, and whether or not we compensated and provided you the mitigation planting. We were hoping you would consider the fact that we're doing a wholesale invasives restoration and wouldn't be held to that standard. We didn't exactly give you the 3-to-1 for that. That being said, if you're not convinced, we're willing to trim off the driveway.
Right.
We didn't do it on the plan, but if you made a condition, so if we trimmed off driveway edges equal to the deck expansion, it'd be a net 0 gain and no mitigation required for the deck. But we thought since there's so much planting that it was a good project, and you could find a way to see to it that you could approve it as proposed.
Well, I think I know what Maury would say, but she's not here.
I just want to speak to that. So 216 square feet of mitigation is required for this 72 square foot increase. We are providing 223 square feet of additional planting. I think what Mike is pointing out is that where we were proposing to do the mitigation planting is along the only area that's not currently vegetated, which is along the front of this front deck here. It's shown in pink on our plan. So we're actually doing more than the 3-to-1 that's required. It just turns out that this space is the only space that's not currently vegetated or currently structured. So the driveway provides the necessary turnout, turning radius, et cetera, for them to get in and out of the driveway. We can shave some of it off, but I just want to point out that we are providing an additional 223 square feet of planting on the site.
Are we all in the quorum down here?
Nope, it's Mark, Steve,
No, I know, not
Jamie,
you.
Mary.
Sorry.
Mark, Steve, Jamie, Mary.
Okay,
Mark, Steve.
Mark.
You gonna take the septic out? No. The field?
Yes, put the tight tank in.
So that whole area is just gonna be stripped?
Completely
naked, so to
stripped and
speak,
then
and
completely
totally
restored,
replanted.
yes.
Thank you.
Steve,
No questions.
Jamie?
On behalf of Maury, thank you for the tight tank. That's all I have.
God.
And on behalf of Maury, I guess we'll save the driveway question for deliberation.
Except she can't deliberate. She's
No, I know, I'm saying on behalf of. Okay, so, motion.
Motion to take it under advisement
Second.
as proposed.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous, so moved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Request to extend
like
the
them?
existing order of conditions. Patricia Garland, trustee, Lot 2, Quaker Road, Falmouth, Mass., DEP 25-4026, request a one-year extension to July 28th, 2018.
Yes, Madam Chairman, I would recommend a one-year extension. I haven't started construction on this. Apparently, there has been some estate complications. They did issue, I think the board all got a copy of the letter. We got an email, I think Courtney forwarded it to you. There have been some estate complications, so I don't see a problem giving them 1 year to try to resolve that on both properties.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Jamie.
Jamie.
Steve speaks louder. But it's
But
soft.
I don't think we should, I think it should be done within the year.
Very
I don't
big
think we
stick.
should, or at least say start construction within the year.
All right. Patricia Garland, trustee, 114 Quaker Road, Falmouth, Mass., DEP 25-4023, also request a one-year extension to July 28th, 2018.
So moved.
Okay.
Recommendation.
Second? Anybody?
Second.
Steve?
Yes.
All those in... Steve?
Jamie and Steve, you can choose
Jamie.
whichever one.
Give it to Steve, he needs the points.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Betsy, did
Unanimous.
I did,
a copy
I did.
of Mr.
When's the
Jack's
next one?
subdivision?
26,
Did you
right?
copy this in the file?
I did not get this.
All right, moving along to vote
What do you, oh,
orders.
wait, hold on one second. I need the form. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Susan needs the form. Should be lacking. in
For the
her
one you
duties
just
as a-
closed?
I'm only kidding. Yeah, the
For
vote
the one
order
you just closed?
It's,
No.
no, for the orders.
Yeah. And that changes. So Betsy, you're on one.
I didn't say I was leaving. I'm sitting here patiently. This is Drift Road, right, Jen?
Hang on. Drift Road. No, that's Rivers End.
Deer Run.
No,
I mean River's End, that's what I
yes,
meant.
it's reversed.
Hang on, guys, give me a second here.
It's not what I said, but it's what I meant.
Give me 1 second here.
Oh, that makes it all right.
We're all telepathic here, so.
We're pathetic, yeah, but I don't know about tele. You ever dump that over the edge?
It's about ready to be. It's okay. Do you want me to look them up over here?
No, Susan can tell us who it is.
Yes.
Oh, I know Steve, Jamie, Betsy, Mark, Mary, and Mark.
Okay. So first we have 10 Deer Run Lane, Zaguros.
Oh, yeah, okay. This is just the planting of,
Oh, is this last week?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
Buffer restoration.
Buffer restoration.
Yep.
And did we, I have a note on my plan that says add a ramp license number.
Okay, we'll put that, I don't believe we've got a revised plan on that.
Right. And also, the legend is incorrect. The native shrub plantings, they're 2 categories, 4 feet and 6 feet on center, and they have the wrong legend.
Yeah.
The reversed. This was Raoul, so.
Yeah.
Oh, he did not give you his plan?
Is there
If
revised?
he didn't give you his plan, he's in trouble.
Yeah.
We told him that. He said, I'll go out the next day. Remember the kinds of trees,
Calm
and the
down.
size of the trees?
We didn't get anything.
I think that might have been, is that the right?
No, we wouldn't have gotten it because we closed the hearing and he said,
So it'll only be
I'll
for the
have it
record.
for you.
He said, I promise
they
I'll
just
get it.
I
provided
promise
one
I'll
for the
get
file.
it to you. I'll send it there the next day, but it would only be for the file. It wouldn't be for us.
No. Nope.
All right, denied.
There he goes, he gets his one pass.
Yeah, but they can't,
What?
they can't do anything until we have that, Jen.
Nope, they won't.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the condition. Anything else? Anyone else have anything on this?
I have a note about the spacing, but that was because the spacing seemed excessive, but that was recommended by
Yeah, I
Mark
know, yeah,
because
we're gonna
of
switch the
coverage. Yeah,
spacing.
yeah.
Yes, right.
And then, I think you said it already, but the existing trees should be on the plan.
Well, the trees are on the plan. The existing trees are on the plan, but they should identify what kinds of trees they are and what size they
Right.
are.
Okay.
Species and size.
Species and size. Got it.
And his, as I could quote, he said, I'll send someone out there tomorrow.
Well, that's okay.
See, we all remember that.
We will.
Maybe he did send somebody
This is
out.
actually
He
his
didn't do anything.
second pass.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, or 2
Actually, no,
meetings
you
ago,
didn't- you didn't-
I almost didn't let him present his case
Yeah.
because he didn't have his materials together. But,
I will slack it.
yes.
Could you pass on the word that you're very disappointed?
I'm sure Courtney would be happy to send
Yeah.
you an email tomorrow morning.
Yeah. Actually, it might be not a bad idea to let all the engineers know in the nicest way possible, because most of them are doing great, but, you know, that they need to honor the week before deadline.
Yep.
Things are due by 5 p.m., Peter, things are due to us 5 p.m.
Noontime.
Noontime, oh, excuse me, the week before the hearing. So that we have,
So that when we pick up our files,
right,
you have it.
and we don't have to come 6 times during the week to make sure we have everything, so.
Noontime on Wednesday.
Well, for procedure then, if they show up at the hearing and we haven't gotten them in that time frame,
We
they would
should-
have to request a continuance.
Yes, right, it's
So,
been done in
but
the
we need to
past.
push that.
Yes, right, that's what I'm saying,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
to send something to the engineers, so
We'll
they.
send them another friendly
they-
reminder.
yeah,
email,
friendly
letting
reminder,
them
so they
know.
have fair notice.
Everything needs to be in. I mean, poor Wilkinson, they asked us when it had to be in, and that poor kid battled his way through the street fair to get his materials here by noon. And the reason we have them come in at noon is because it gives Courtney time to process them, because before it was like,
Right.
they would show up at 4:30, she's trying to get ready for the mirroring, and they'd just dump all sorts of paper
Yeah,
on
that
me,
makes
and it's
perfect sense.
consistent, and it was just completely unfair.
Mhm.
So we say noontime, it gives the staff the ability to process the paperwork, make sure you all receive all the paperwork and all the files are correct.
Right. And this is in the regulations, it's a requirement of regulations, so, and we, you know, we're usually not so hard-nosed about it, but it gets to a point sometimes where
Yeah,
you
it's
just can't
getting
really.
ridiculous there for a while, though.
Hmm?
We were getting revised plans as they were walking up to the
Right,
podium.
right, and it's, yeah.
That was Raoul, yeah.
Yeah, if they have to revise
Well,
the
there's been a
plan,
few of
that's
them,
one
but-
of the things they have to get in a week ahead.
Okay, next.
All right, next.
So, motion to
has-
accept conditions as discussed.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous, so moved. 15, Carrie Lane, Steinert.
The pool, the spa, the, not the decking, but the material for the driveway.
Right?
Yeah. Well, we go by who's ever on board with, and I think they should run it, sometimes they don't, so. Yeah, not that one, but, yeah.
I won't be on this one because I line them up. I line them up. I just put a blank if somebody's not there. I start at that end, Mark, Steve.
No, not everybody can.
That's it, Mary.
Okay.
I have a note about adding the square footage in the A and B zones.
Didn't he do that in the, was that in the revised one?
Well, no, that was requested at the, let's see, for the, you know.
I mean, I think they pretty much addressed all the board's concerns.
Here. Yeah, no, that's the lot coverage, that's, I wanted to.
They're doing the proposed addition.
I'm not looking at the revised plan, and that's probably my fault, so,
Yeah, because I know we got it.
okay.
Yeah, you did. And then you got Simpson's revised plan. And they're doing the addition, the patios, garage, the other garage, the spa,
Right.
septic. Big project.
It is a very big project.
And they submitted that, you know, the to you on the.
Yes, they emailed that,
driveway.
yeah. Yeah, okay. Does anybody have anything? Yes, Steve.
I had a note about a 4-foot fence, and I'm not,
Pool fence?
That's a pool fence?
Pool fence, I think Courtney wanted a darker line around the pool fence, so you
Right.
knew where it was. So they do have to have a
Yeah,
pool
because
fence.
it was kind of in with like 20 other things, so you couldn't really.
Yeah, it's
follow
hard
it.
to,
Right.
very hard to see.
in the
I think they did
Vista.
that on
No, then I have nothing else.
All right, so, motion?
Just looking at the wrong plan.
Just, I have a quick question first.
Certainly.
I have a note about national heritage. That was ironed out, right?
Yeah, that's all set.
So I'll make a motion to accept as discussed.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous, so moved. Okay, 45 Toby Lane, the dock.
This is the dock, that's the seasonal dock, and they want to install the pilings and then make the decking portion of it removable on a seasonal basis.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Toby Lane.
What do we have for on that? Yeah, you've heard the staff's concerns on this, the same concerns I had on Nichols Road and stuff. I think that the pilings, I just think it's gonna go down a very slippery slope, but you've heard
And
my concerns.
can you refresh my memory, did they, aside from the pilings, did they reduce the size so that there's no enlargement of the floating, the float side? Has been reduced from 616 to 614, so there's no enlargement on that?
Yeah, they did revise the plan to reduce that flow.
Okay. Well, I have two things to mention. One is that I brought up the question of an increase in the square footage just having to do with the change in pilings and posts, and I greatly overstated it. I had a couple errors in there, and one of them was that I included the increase in the deck, but it's a 1.5 square foot increase is what we're talking about. So it's, I would say, that's negligible by itself. The other thing, I recall that Attorney Wall got up and made a point to the effect that our regulations ban they disallow a new dock or an extension of a new dock or pier, or an extension of existing dock or pier in the velocity zone. And he was emphasizing the idea of an extension rather than, total square footage.
I respectfully disagree with
Well, I
that.
respectfully
Assessment,
disagree, and
yeah.
I perused the internet, and there are three websites, Merriam-Webster and that kind of thing, that include enlargement or prolongation, increase in area, not just length, et cetera. So I'm going to put that in the record. And that's, yeah. And now to get on to, no? Can't. Oh, no, I can't. I can't. You're right. Okay. All right. So anyway, to get on to the more material questions.
I mean, they're just proposing to keep the pilings in during the, so if you were to approve it, you need to make sure that you condition it that the decking and all of the decking, the ramp, everything has to be removed by a date certain every year. That's what I would put.
But not the posts.
Well, no, that's what they're saying. They want to put the pilings in and then just make the rest of it removable.
Right. And that is what they have now. It's just that they're talking about something much more substantial.
Yeah.
Right, so.
In theory, what they have now is removable.
Correct.
Yes. Right, and the argument really is that there'll be less disturbance without moving the pipes and pilings all the time, but
Well,
it
that would
didn't
be my
appear to me
argument.
that they were really doing that, so.
I think it was their statement that those little piles stay in, those little pipes stay in year round.
Right.
I can't confirm that.
I can't
That-
confirm it
that
either,
can't
but
confirm that.
they've got two separate conflicting things going on, which is that then there's also, they're making the argument that these permanent things are better because they're permanent. So, but, I mean, the decking, I think we discussed that the material for the float is preferable, and but it's a velocity zone, and the new structure does lend itself to something, to an enlargement of what's there now. But that would only, that would be done illegally, it couldn't be done legally, like so many other things. So anyway, I don't know, what does anybody else think about this one?
Well, personally, I think we're dealing with primarily the issue of velocity zone and
Right.
and structures in the velocity zone. And my feeling is this structure, for better and for worse, is much more durable than what was in there. I think it's a safer project from a community safety point of view. If there were a velocity zone issue, now that's a modest velocity zone at best, but in any event, I think it's a safer one than having posts sitting on the ground or barely, those pipes barely stuck into the substrate. That's all.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Steve, you have anything?
No.
Jamie?
I kind of think the pilings are
Excessive.
a better option.
Oh.
And in theory, if they pull what they have there now every year and put them back every year, that's a bigger disturbance. I'm kind of okay with it.
Yes, I'm okay with it. My concern is that it's a velocity zone, and it's something that we really try to hold the line on. So if we can write the order of conditions as tight or narrow, or however you want to describe it, as possible, so that it doesn't lend itself to a lot of other things
I mean, if everything's removed.
making the case that they're the same as this.
What date do you want?
Date for removal,
How much gets removed? You know,
Yes.
all the dock system itself.
right,
I would, to make it easy, and I don't know Falmouth's mooring rights off the top of my head, I would say when the winter sticks have to go in.
mhm.
So I would say, because I mean, technically, people do like to keep their boats if they can on their docks for as long as possible if it's nice weather. But there is a regulation, at least in the town of Mashpee, that winter sticks have to be in by a certain date, and I believe Falmouth has the same.
Is it like a
Does
Columbus Day or
anybody have a
something?
mooring in Falmouth here?
October 15th.
October 15th, close enough?
What?
October 15th, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah, I was good, I was saying
I'd say October
Columbus Day.
15th or whenever that winter stick thing
Yes,
happens to go in.
okay.
How about that? That work?
It's,
We can do October 15th. And then all portions of the dock, ramp, floats, decking, like the ramp, everything
Yeah.
floats.
mhm.
Okay.
And I mean, that addresses, at least seasonally, the velocity issue.
And out of the resource area, of course. All right,
Okay. You have to take the vote, guys.
Make a motion to accept his condition?
discussed,
Say?
discussed.
As
Discussed.
discussed. Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous, so moved.
I gotta get my language right.
The Shining Sea Bikeway, Town of Falmouth.
Good luck with that.
Okay.
So my recollection is that we were
They're
fine with this in principle, and I just asked that we check that the herbicide they were talking about using wasn't gonna violate our gigantic state bond for this project.
Well, your staff has a few concerns with the way
Okay.
this was presented. One, yes, they've marked the locust trees, but they still really haven't determined where they're gonna put those root barrier systems, and that's a real concern to me because of the way they need to install them. So I think, you know, prior to construction, we have to, you know, it'll be like your big construction projects, we have to meet with the contractor. I need to know who the contractor is. They have to abide by all the natural heritage issues, because you do have plovers that are nesting out there, and they had a tough summer, and we can't have any work out there for them widening the bike path, because they do nest fairly close to the bike path, and if they're extending it on the side, that side, you know, it's gonna be disruptive.
Yeah.
So I want a time of year restriction for the plover issue.
Absolutely.
And I want to meet with the contractor. I want to know exactly where those root barriers are going in, and I want the staff to have the discretion to say, no, if it's in a wetland area, you're not sticking a root barrier in there, because they're going to have to ditch witch away, and they're going to be digging in that wetland. The issue was widening the bike path in areas particularly sensitive, which is Locust Street to Elm Road, and from Elm Road to Surf Drive are incredibly sensitive areas.
Mhm.
And that is where I have the biggest concern of them putting these root barrier systems in. Surf Drive to Woods Hole, honestly, the staff doesn't have an issue with the root barriers in that location. But it's Locust Street to Surf Drive.
Right,
That is
and
a
that's
huge
also
concern.
an area where the surface is particularly bad.
Yeah, and that's, you know.
Natural.
So that's what I would request and recommend, because they didn't really, and I had
It wasn't
asked
really finalized.
and I asked multiple times in our pre-hearings when we were speaking with them, where are these root barrier systems going? But in the overall project, widening it 1 foot and 1 foot between Surf Drive, 1 foot and 1 foot between Surf Drive and I can't remember off the top of my head how far they go down. And then at a certain point, switching to widening 2 feet on the south side to avoid the wetland on the north side, as you're going into and towards Woods Hole from that first wooden bridge after Trunk River. And removing the 200 locust trees and installing the root barrier. But they're gonna have to abide by all the time of year restrictions, pre-construction meeting, and I want the locations of those root barriers one marked in the field and discuss with staff first. If we have a concern, we'll come back to you. Actually, we'll just say no, and if they have a concern, they can come back to you.
That all sounds
How
fine
does
with
that
me. It
sound,
sounds necessary.
The majority of the trees are,
They're locust,
they're
yeah.
by Locust Street. They're farther, I can't figure out
Yeah,
what direction. In the drier upland, or, excuse that word, part of the, of that section.
basically, they're all throughout the
Yeah.
area. where
They
they are.
live in
Except for the area
They can have
like
neighbors.
towards Trump River.
Yeah.
I
That's-
love
have
locust
the
trees,
cousins
they're
born.
going, yeah.
It's between Locust Street and Surf.
They're not just in upland, they can be
In the wetlands.
Oh,
too.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Nuisance.
No, I think he's
We used to
saying
get
where they
free
actually
firewood.
are in this case.
Exactly, where they actually are.
They're all tagged in the field.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's hope the root barriers are worth it.
What are they doing this project?
We don't have funding for it yet.
Not soon.
We gotta keep it in mind.
What was that?
We gotta keep this project in mind,
Right.
to harvest trees.
Oh, I already got you covered on that.
All right.
So,
Harvest the trees?
No, no, but currently there is no funding for the project. So basically, they wanted to get the project approved and then go forward to try to secure funding for it, is what I'm told.
okay.
I'll make a motion to accept as discussed.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous, so moved. Okay, other business, elections.
I nominate Mary to be chair.
Second.
That was quick. I was going to ask if, since we're missing 2 regular members, but, okay.
They had their chance.
What?
All
They could be
right.
here.
So we have,
I don't think they'll mind.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous, so moved.
I nominate Jamie to be vice chair.
Who?
Second.
Second,
Who's vice?
Jamie,
Mm.
second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous, so moved.
Speech.
And we need a,
Steve to be CPC representative.
yes, indeed, second.
Steve, are you okay with being CPC representative?
I accept the nomination.
Okay.
If nominated, I will run.
Yeah, she'll
All right.
She'll second.
Yeah,
Second.
okay.
Jamie wanted to do a switch, though.
Whatever. I was trying to get him to do the close
Oh, I'd
public.
love to see you
Yeah, I
CPC.
hear that's, anyway. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Track.
Unanimous, so moved. Thank you.
Congratulations.
All right, and the most
Not as
important
vice
motion of the
chair, I
night.
didn't want to confuse
Oh,
him.
I have
sorry.
other business.
Sorry.
It's quick. If anyone's interested, I'm giving a talk to the 300 Committee annual meeting tomorrow. Starts at 6:30. The talk, the business starts at like 7:15 on the Queen message.
I volunteer to be a timekeeper.
All right.
Excuse me, where is the meeting
So it's
again?
at the Navigator.
The Navigator, which is.
I know where the Navigator is, I wanted you to say it. I didn't hear you say that.
Oh,
She didn't, I don't
I
think.
didn't.
She
say.
said Kuna Messett, I thought.
That's the
No,
topic.
that's the topic.
No, that's the
I
top.
see.
So you said business, is that you or is that their annual association business?
Yeah, but I think it's short.
It's short, okay.
15 minutes. And
So
then awards and then.
7:15?
Yeah.
Okay. I am hoping to come, but budgets are due
She'll be there in
Friday.
spirit, if nothing else.
And
She'll be there in spirit.
I have several things on the calendar tomorrow
Before you get to the budget?
before I get
A
to,
motion to, I move adjournment?
Second.
Second.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous, so moved.
I just didn't want Mary's
Can we make
budget
you all
discussed on the